Hello guys, once again this is Adlai King. Today I'm making this video to show many to many relationship and one to many relationship. In that video I'm going to use the teacher student subject scenario. Um, Basically, um, the main purpose of this video is to answer a question to one of my viewer. Um, but you will be able to learn a lot from it. Just stay with us. All right. We'll begin. It's going to be basically SQL Server database, which what I'm using, and I'm using the database called Video DB, which is the one I used last time the example for the example of the web filter with many text box I used last time. This one. So um, I'm going to create a few tables, and that uh, in that same database, which is going to be one teacher table, one student, and also a subject table that will basically show, okay, a teacher has, let's say, X amount of student, and X amount of student belong to one teacher, and also it's going to show how many subject that a teacher is able to teach or is teaching in the school. All right, just bear with me, and we'll begin. All right, so we'll begin by creating the table. So I'll start by typing using. I may use let me do video DB and go. This is to establish my open connection to this database. First of all, I'm gonna create the teachers table. The teachers table will be a simple table with a few things. Create table. Um, Call this teachers, and we're gonna give it a teacher ID, not teacher ID, but teacher ID, and identity. We're gonna do it. I'm gonna make it start make the seed start at 1000. By doing that, identity equal 1000 is going to start the teacher's ID will start at 1000, and then for every new teacher that is added in the system is going to add 1 to it, which is going to be 1000, 1001, 1002, and so and so. All right, so this ID is an identity, and it will automatically generate it by itself every time um, a new record is created. And that I also want to set it as the primary key. Uh, all right. Then we need the teacher name. Let's start by first name. 150. Um, I'll say not null to this, and we need m name. Let's say let's give that a char one. We only allow one letter into the name, and that can stay null. And we need also the last name. Set it as lname. Um, and varchar uh, and varchar 150, and also not null. We need the date of birth. Let's give that date. Also that's not supposed to be null. We're gonna have gender. I like using, you know, numbers for gender. So you can switch number one for male and number two for female, or you can want zero for male and one for female. But yeah, so it's kind of to me it's a little bit, more accurate. Then we need sex, and also I'll use an integer or int. All right, and that will be it. Something happened. All right, so that will be it for the teachers table. We don't need much. I'm just showing an example, so that way, we'll be able to put some data and show the example we're trying to show. So now um, we want to create the student the student table. In the student table, it's gonna be just like the teacher table. You create a student table that carry the student name and so on. So basically, I can copy all this information from the teacher to save time. All right, so create table, and this one we're gonna call it student. Okay, so pretty much I'm gonna duplicate what's here. The only thing I'm going to change is here the teacher to student. Student, not state. The student ID. So now I'll set it to be the same, pretty much, because this is in two different tables that won't interfere with each other. All right. So now you have the student name, middle name, first name, middle name, and last name, and date of birth, gender, sex. All right. So that will be the student information. So now we need a subject. The subject will relate to the student. I mean, to actually the teacher. The teacher. All right. So let me create a subject table. Create table. Call it subject. All right. Call it sub ID. Anti. T. Let's say 1 1. Since this is not gonna be that important, let's call it 1 1. And basically, um, not null. All right. So now we want the teacher to go into subject, meaning the subject table will relate to the teacher. So a teacher can teach many subjects at a time, right? Or many teacher can teach the same subject. Let's see it that way. So a teacher can teach one subject, one or many subject, and at the same time, many subject can be taught by one teacher or many teachers. So many teacher can teach science, and science can relate to many teacher. Okay, let's see it like that. It's a many to many basically. All right. So since it's a many to many, then instead of having to um, add the teacher's ID inside the table here, we will create a subject detail table in order to create the many to many relationship, so that you can see it as okay, a teacher can have many subject, and as many subject can be taught by one teacher. All right, so in that case we're gonna have the subject name. Let's say subname and varchar um, let's say 250. We don't know how long this subject going to be. 250 and not null. Okay, type. Probably not important. In varchar, let's say instead of type, let me use description. So I have a very simple table. let's say description. I use this the script and description. Let's say 350 words. You know, um, the description can be null if since it's not that important. But in that case, to join these two table, to join the teacher to the project to the subject table, then we have to have a subject detail. Um, let's say subject detail. Mm-mm. Create table. We're gonna create a table called subject detail. All right. So in that subject detail, we're gonna have subject ID. We have sub ID in there, and and we need also teacher ID, also int. All right. So now we're gonna do a primary key. Uh, let's make these two the primary key of the table. All right, so let's consider these two: the subject ID, and the sub ID will be used as the primary key of that table. All right, and then in the same case, we're gonna have a specific ID for that table too. Let's call it sub detail, sub d ID. All right, sub d ID and identity. So 1 1. All right. So identity 1 1 not null and comma. Okay. So now we can use all the three because there will be multiple. These three, all these three um, key will be used as the primary key of that table. So down here we have to add uh, the subject, right? Subject assigned date. Let's say the date. We're gonna put the date the subject was assigned to that teacher or whatever. Okay. Put assigned date. ASS date, and let's say date. All right. So I think that should be enough for the subject detail table. So in the subject detail table, you have the sub ID, the sub ID, um, sub D ID, which is the table itself, the ID of the table itself, and you have the sub ID, which comes from the subject ID, which is the subject ID, and also the teacher ID, which is the ID of that teacher who will be teaching the subject. So now, all these three ID become the primary key of that table. So the table itself relies on these three keys to um, to uh, to perform the relation to maintain the relationship between the project between the teacher and the subject. So now in that uh, subject detail, the teacher can a teacher can be added multiple times. That's one thing because of that ID. Since that ID will be one every time, so now the teacher can be added multiple time, and this ID will be incremented every time you add that teacher. and then the and the uh, you know and the sub ID, which is the subject ID, will be added. So one or many teacher can have the same subject ID. So that will make it okay where a subject can be taught by many teacher or by one teacher, or many teacher can be teaching one subject. So that's a relation. That's where the relationship between teacher and subject is established. Okay, with that. All right. So now we have student. How does a student relate to a teacher? A teacher, I mean, we can have it where the teacher, I mean, one teacher can teach many student, okay, and that relationship will be done with a class. You would have to have a class to tell you how many teacher, how many student can a teacher basically how many if one student can be taught by one teacher or many teacher with the class table, you'll be able to assign one student to many teacher, and also many student to one teacher. So it will be a pretty much a many to many relationship. But now to set up um, a one to one relationship. All right, so before that, let me run this to make sure all these table created. Um, all right, do a go here. All right, so now let's create those table. So as you can see, all these three tables have been created. So if we go back to this database, which is a video, all right, a video DB, and refresh the table, we should be able to see those other tables we created. For example, you have the teachers, subject, and teacher. I mean subject detail. All right. All right. So now let's go ahead and create the student. It's similar. Yeah, the student already created. Okay. Yeah, plus the student. So now we have the student and we have subject and subject detail and teacher. So that's four tables. All right. So now we want to join the teacher to the student. In that case, that will be a many to many by using class. Okay. If I create a class table, it will be a many to many. Okay. But if I just assign this, if I just create the student table and I don't create a class table, okay. So to join the teacher to that student table, it will be a one to many, where one teacher can teach many student, but a student can be taught by one teacher. Okay. So that will be a one to many. Or like, a better example would be okay. I'm gonna use the teacher, the student, and teacher to be a many to many example, and I'm gonna create another example as a one to many. All right, so let's create a class table, classes, and that class we're gonna have a class ID, class ID, and uh, um, not null. All right, so now we're gonna do the same thing we did um, for teacher and class and subject. We we have to use both student um, both student and teacher ID in the class table, because it will be a class will be assigned to a teacher and a student will be assigned a class. Okay, so it will be pretty much the same thing. You have the class ID and you also have student ID. Pretty much, let me do it in reverse. Right. So now you have the student ID and the teacher's ID in the same class table, because the teacher will be the teacher of that class who will teach the class, and the student will be the attendee of that class. All right. So now you have registration date or assigned date. Let me put assigned date. That will be date, not null. What I can do for the date, whenever you add the student to the class, instead of having to add the date, you have it generate a date for yourself by setting a default. Uh, Default will be get date. Um, will be get date. All right. So that will automatically add the date for that for the class whenever the class is assigned. And I'll do the same for that other table which I already created here. That would have to be the same. All right. So now um, all right. So now with this class, you have the teacher, the teacher, the teacher who will teach the class, the student who will be assigned to the class. So now the class is based on the subject. Okay. So for example, science. Science is a subject. Is gonna be part of the subject. Is gonna be part of the subject. The subject name it will be science, but is the class also will be called science. Okay. So the class is science. It is coming from the subject. The subject will be science, and the class will be named science. But the class will be assigned to the student based on the class table. Okay. Assigned date. All right. Assigned date and so on. So that's the example to make the relationship between the class and the student, and also the teacher and the class. Then now you wanna set a primary key for the class, which gonna also follow the same instruction as the subject detail. You do a primary key. Oh, I don't like it there. Primary key will equal to these three fields. All right, so these three fields will be the primary key of the table. So now this will create the relationship between these three, between the table, which between the teacher, the class, and the student. All right. So now let me see. One thing we can use. One thing we can use as a one-to-many relationship. It can be a student um, and a parent. Okay, a student and a parent. Let's say let's call that a parent table. I'll just create a table called parent. All right, that will create a many to many. All right, so because in that case, what you're gonna have is a parent in a household. That parent in that household can have one or many student or one or more student. Okay, so one or more student can relate to a parent, but many parent cannot have the same student, right? Many parent cannot have the same student because that would never make sense. If you are a parent and let's say you are Jack, you cannot be the mother of John and also Jean is also the mother of John. That's a very very bad thought. If if you would look at it, it would be completely impossible for two mother to have one daughter or two father to have one son. It makes no sense. Okay, it makes no sense at all. Right. So in that case, we're gonna create a table called parent. Okay. In the parents table, we're gonna have a parent name, p first name, let's say f name, in varchar say 150, not null, and l name and varchar 150, also not null. All right. We might not care about. Well, we will care about sex, gender, and sex, because gender and gender. Let's say and sex also and then we want to have address. Let's say in varchar 100 and varchar let's say 200 300 because there must be an address. The parent must have an address for the student, and you want to have city in varchar 150 not null. You want to have things like phone, because a parent have to have phone to be able to contact that parent. You need a phone. Um, I said and varchar 14. That will be the length of a phone, and not null also. So now the relationship student and between student and parent will be based on student ID and parent ID. You have a parent ID, parent ID, which is int um, identity. Let's give it a 1 1 and primary key. Then you have the student ID. Let me copy that from here. Then you have the student ID, comma. Sorry. All right. So now you have the student and parent table. So in the parent table, you will see that you have a student ID. So now this student, because each student has his or her own ID, then in that case, a parent can have multiple students in the same school, and each of those students will have an ID. But the parent will only have one ID, that parent. So that student will be relating to, or many students can relate to that one parent. So that's why you have the parent ID in that student. I mean, you have the student ID in the parent table. So that means the parent belong to, or the student belong to that parent, or the parent belong to that student, right? So now, in that case, you cannot have two parents that have the same student. You know, in a term, I would say, like you can have, let's say, a mother and a dad that have a student. But in the term of having two different parents, two completely different parents outside the family to have the same student is impossible. So that's the reason why this table would be a one too many. A one too many, like Gene and Gene or Gene has two students. Let's say Peter and John Doe. That's the two students belonging to Gene. You cannot have another woman called Janet to have the same student in the same school, the same student, because that is impossible. So that's the reason why you have a one to many relationship in that. So now I can go ahead and run this table. and it will create it. So now what we have to do is to build the diagram that show the relationship between these tables. Alright, so to build a diagram, you just go here in the table on that diagram, and then you do a new diagram, and yes, taking a little time. There it is. All you do, you select all and add, and that will add all those different tables in there. There's one of them I'm going to get rid of. Okay, pretty good. Yes, not done yet. Oops. It's taking time to add all the tables. We just give it a minute. Hmm. It's taking way too long. Um, all right, give me a minute. I'll come back. All right, back, and all the tables are laid out now. All right, so this one we don't need. Get rid of it. All right, so to build the diagram now, pretty much you have teacher. Remove teacher here, and you have subject. All right, so teacher will be um, and not subject. You need subject detail first. As you can see in that subject detail, what you will see is that you have three keys there. These three keys indicate that they are the primary key of that table. And here, wow, that was supposed to be the primary key in here. I might have to recreate it. I don't know why it's not up here. Um, let me see. This is for subject. I have to create the primary key of subject, or otherwise it won't work. Primary key. Okay. Oh, pretty much. Let me do this. Alter table. To this table. Alter column. And I'll say this is going to be this. So next time we don't have that problem. Um, right here. So what I do is altering the table, alter the column. Alright. Let me see. I might not be able to do that. Subject. This one. Identity one. Alright. So it's better off of deleting and create it. I'll drop the table subject and we create it. Alright. So that would solve the problem. Don't take much time. Alright. So that will actually set the key to be primary key there now. So let me see if I do a refresh. Um, all right, so now we have teachers. Teachers will relate to this table. All right. So now you said the primary key relationship is in teacher. All right. And the foreign key is in subject detail. Primary key teacher, um, and the foreign key will be in the subject detail. All right. So now this connection is established. Then you want to do the same for sub ID. You take this and you point it to this ID. Then the primary key, alright, so for some reason it still didn't add it. I'm gonna remove it and remove from diagram and re-add it. I'm gonna add it again. Alright, okay, there it is. Hmm. For some reason it's not. Let me see. Subject. Now subject is okay. Remove from diagram. Alright, for some reason it's not bringing the key. Alright, maybe I'll just restart over. I'll start all over. I'm sorry. Alright, so I'll start all over so I do it correctly. These are them again. So close that. So okay. So teacher basically will go onto here for its relationship and say okay and okay. Then you have subject also going into that using the sub ID. And as you can see, it says now subject is the primary key, and it's one relationship. And then now you have student who's also um, okay, that's the teachers, the subject and student. Then now you have student that assigned that have a parent. Then now you get student and go into the parent field, and it tells you student. The primary key is student table, and foreign key into parent table, which is exactly what we wanted. And here we also have to have our other table. Do I miss a table? The class table, I don't see it. Parent, subject, detail. Oh, I didn't create the class table. What happened? Class ID. So 1, 2, 3, primary key. Oh no, that's not the primary key. Alright, so what else? What else I didn't add? Let me add the class now. No. Do I have to start all over again? Come on. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I have to start all over again. Didn't create that class table. Um, Still didn't see the class. I don't know why. Alright, class. Class is now available. Refresh. Create diagram. Alright. I don't see class. I don't know why. Alright, I don't see class. So um, and I don't know why. Add this there. There it is. All right, so now we have student, um, you know, teacher into class, and okay, and you have student into class. So that's the relationship, the many to many relationship between student, between the student. All right. So that's the many to many relationship between student and class. Student and class has, I mean, have a many to many relationship. Then now you have subject and teacher. Subject and teacher have a many to many relationship, um, using the subject detail. Teacher. All right. All right. So many to many relationship subject between subject and and teacher. Okay. Many to many relationship between subject and teacher using subject detail. And um, you have a many to many relationship between subject and student, between subject and teacher, and a many to relationship between student and class, and a one to many relationship between parent and student, between parent and student. All right, a one to many relationship between parent and student. All right, that's between parent and student. And there also, there's one table with um, one thing I forgot to do, because a student is assigned to a class. Oh yeah, that's already established. A student is assigned to a class, and a class is taught by a teacher, and the teacher, ID, class ID. Oh, I forgot to add the class, the subject ID. You see, yeah, the subject ID was supposed to be in the class table. The subject ID was supposed to be in the class table to create a relationship between subject and class, because that's the only way the student will be able to use that class. Okay, that's the only way. But I mean, that doesn't prevent you from giving that student a class through the teacher, because since the teacher is assigned to that class, to that subject, then since the teacher is teaching that subject and the student is assigned to the teacher, then it's already assigned to that class, because you can bring that subject based on the teacher to the student. But it will be important that the class table have a subject ID, the subject ID, which will create the relationship between student and subject or the class. Okay, so because right now you don't see any, there's no relationship between the class and the subject. Okay, so that's the mistake made there. All right, so that would be it. As you can see, this is the relationship between you can use a many to many relationship and one to many relationship between tables, and be able to um, to query these tables according to the relationship they have with their other table. All right, so if you guys like this video, give me a thumbs up and let me know, if you have any question about this video. All right, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. All right.